This is not a joke. This is not a training trick. Across the county, dogs have been reported sitting. Not lying down, not begging, sitting like us, upright, motionless, watching. The owners who stayed in the room thought it was funny. They are not answering their phones anymore. If your dog sits like a human, you have already waited too long. This is a message from the Office of District Emergency Management. Please remain calm, shelter in place, and listen carefully. What you are about to hear is not rumor, not speculation, but an official safety broadcast. Earlier today, multiple calls were received regarding unusual animal behavior. At first, dispatchers laughed. Stress, hallucination, exaggeration, we've heard it all. But within hours, the calls were consistent, identical, impossible to ignore. The reports all pointed to one behavior. Dogs across the county have been observed leaving normal posture behind. Not lying down, not curling at your feet, not wagging or begging. Instead, they stop. They sit, upright, paws placed forward like arms, heads raised, eyes locked. They sit with the spine unnaturally aligned, almost rigid, as though bones were rearranging themselves into something closer to our shape. At first, families described it as cute, a trick, something to film and upload. Neighbors laughed when shown, but soon the dogs would not move again. They refused. Food, refused water, refused to lie down. They only sat hour after hour, gaze never breaking. When owners reached to move them, the dogs lifted their paw arm rather and pressed the hand away with deliberate force, not playful, not reactive, calculated. The first casualty was reported at 8:14 p.m. A father attempted to lift his dog off the couch. The dog resisted, pushing back. Then, without warning, the animal's lips curled not in a snarl, not in a growl, but into a smile. Teeth exposed, lips stretched into a shape no dog should form. The man froze. His wife reported he whispered the word human. Then the dog spoke, not in barking tones, in his voice. The husband's own voice, whispering his wife's name. The dog remained seated as the family fled. Emergency response was too late. The house is empty now. No sign of the occupants, only indentations in the furniture, deep, wide, as though several bodies had been seated for hours. We are issuing the following guidance. If your dog lowers itself into this posture, you must leave the room immediately, close the door, and do not return. Do not attempt to interact. Do not attempt to correct the behavior. The animal that sits is not your dog. Further details are grim. Residents who stayed described changes the longer they watched. First, the posture becomes more refined. Elbows bend, paws curl like hands, legs cross at the knee. The dog adjusts itself constantly, practicing, perfecting the imitation of a human silhouette. One witness said it was like watching a puppet being taught to move, except the strings were inside the body. The bones crack audibly as vertebrae click into place, hips shift wider, shoulders square. The sound has been described as wet snapping, as if the body is rearranging itself piece by piece. Neighbors have reported silhouettes through windows, dogs seated upright in chairs, couches, even on the floor, motionless, watching. The owners are missing. The dogs remain. At shelters, the kennels are emptying. Staff insist they did not open them. Surveillance shows the animals sitting perfectly still. Then, one by one, the locks disengage. Not broken, not chewed, disengaged, as if hands reached through and opened the latches. The footage cuts out. When power returned, the cages were vacant. We repeat, leave the room. The animals that sit are not your pets. They are rehearsing. You may notice small changes before the posture begins. The dog may stare at you longer than usual, holding eye contact without panting or blinking. You may hear scratching against furniture, but not random, repeated patterns, straight lines, crosses, grids. When you see these signs, you are already in danger. Multiple families report hearing their dog's collar rattle, though the dog remained perfectly still. Then the sound of footsteps followed from another room, heavy, deliberate, not matching the size of the animal. When they investigated, the rooms were empty. When they returned, the dog had moved, sat closer, still upright, still smiling. Do not remain inside with them. Every minute you stay, they learn, they copy, they rehearse. And once the performance is complete, there is no audience left to watch. At 10:46 p.m., police entered a home on Creekside Lane. The call came from a neighbor reporting multiple voices. Inside, 4 dogs were seated in a circle around the dining table. Their jaws moved. The officers reported hearing their own names spoken back to them in distorted versions of their own voices. They withdrew immediately. Backup arrived 5 minutes later. The house was silent. Chairs were still warm. We cannot confirm where the families are going. There is no trace of them in the homes. No blood, no signs of struggle. Only silence and seated dogs where people once lived. Authorities stress this. Do not underestimate the imitation. The longer the dog sits, the closer its shape becomes to human. The muzzle shortens. The jaw flattens. The eyes stretch wider, wet and trembling, trying to fit into sockets that aren't theirs. Some owners report seeing their dogs wear their own faces, flickering momentary overlays like film burned through a projector. Glimpses of themselves staring back. We have received recordings. We cannot release them. What they show is not fit for public view. One family's security camera captured their dog alone on the couch. It sits motionless. Then at 3:14 a.m., the animal rises, not onto 4 legs, onto 2. The footage ends as it approaches the camera, face locked in an obscene imitation of a smile. The lens fogs with its breath, then static. This message is not a joke, not a bedtime story. This is your only warning. If your dog sits like a human, leave the room immediately. Do not hesitate. Do not stay to record. Do not stay to laugh. The animals are not performing for you. They are practicing for something worse. If you return to the room, they will be waiting, upright, watching, waiting for the moment when your shape is no longer theirs to copy, but yours to surrender. Stay calm, stay alert, and for your safety, do not return to your pets. This concludes the emergency broadcast. The message will now repeat.